Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Audio Production Town Hall. We're glad that you could join us. Each month, you'll find us here sprouting off about all kinds of different topics related to audio production, from making records to sound for film and games and everything else. We hope that you'll plan to join us regularly. If you miss a session, we will have this archived, so you'll be able to use the same links that got you here to watch it in the archive. Today, we'll be talking about an issue that's an interesting topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is working with clients. I've been working with clients for 40 years, and it makes me sound like an old man, but that's what I am. But today I'm joined by Derrick Harvin. He is audio course director for Audio Production Portfolio 7.
Portfolio 7, yes.
And my name is Paul Harlyn. I am the course director for Portfolio 3. So, Derrick, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to this place in audio production?
Absolutely. I've been producing music, for many years, coming up on about 30 years of professionally producing music. I have a wide range of clients that I've worked with over the years. Most recently, I've been doing a lot of contemporary jazz productions, but I still keep my hands involved in some pop production, some gospel work, and an assortment. Whatever the client brings, I'm here for the challenge.
That's it. That's it. That's the secret. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my background is as varied as yours, Derrick. I moved to New York City in 1984 to be an audio producer, and I worked with every kind of client in New York City you could imagine. A lot of rap up there. I was doing a lot of dance music, my own music, more chill out, and I've released a lot of albums under my own name, about 8 albums in the last 20 years. And so, as Derrick said, when clients come to me, they're looking for guidance on, how to get their song to the best place it could be, right? They're trying to get it from from a concept in their brain to a finished product that they can release.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So the first issue that comes up for me is the client shows up an hour later than an agreed start time. So I came up with these 14 different issues that can happen when you're working with clients. So the first one is a pretty common one because especially if you're dealing, when I was in New York City and even down here in Orlando, you're dealing with all kinds of traffic issues or subway issues or whatever it is. And, you can't guarantee that they're going to be there on time. So Derrick, how do you handle it when they show up an hour later than the agreed start time?
Absolutely. Communication is so key. Communication, I always appreciate when a client lets me know what's going on. We have families. We understand that things happen, and get into a place sometimes could be a task, especially in the city. But this is why, and I agree with your notes on this, is having a block rate for a studio, so you can have kind of a good range of time that the artist can come in, even if they're behind 30 minutes to an hour. The whole session is not lost. We can still get a lot done. But the communication, if they call me and say, hey, we have to reschedule, then obviously we will have to reschedule. I try to make the best of the time. But if it's within a parameter where there's another client that's coming in and it's not going to clash, I typically like to be forgiving, especially if it's a client that I've been working with for some time.
That's the key word there, forgiving, because the last thing, the customer's always right is the motto.
Yeah.
So you always trend the line between the customer's always right, bending over backwards from the customer, or having, your own time being entrenched.
Exactly.
So that's the balance. So for me, I found that, as you said, communication, but if you have, I know for me, I take it upon as a challenge, okay? The client, they're stuck somewhere, so I say, okay, now I've got an hour, and it's me in my studio, so now I have projects that I'm working on my own, so now I take, how much work can I get done in this hour? Can I get my track from A to, not Z, but can I get halfway done on this track on the things I wanted to accomplish? So I look at it almost like a gift, instead of looking at it as a negative. I'll turn it around and say, okay, I've got a gift of an hour. And which brings up another point, is like the difference between charging, and I don't have this on the question, but the difference between charging by the hour versus charging per project.
Yes.
So if you're charging by the hour, like obviously what do you do when they show up an hour later? Are you charging them for that hour, or are you allowing it not to be charged?
Absolutely. Most of the projects that I do, I'm usually consulting with them before we get started to see what the end goal is.
Yeah, yeah.
What it is that they're wanting to accomplish, because we may book a 4 to 8 hour session, and that just may not be enough time.
Right, of course. Yeah.
So I like to keep it pretty open in that regard, and like to really just have like a block rate and just like a figure out what the budget is and what's most feasible for all parties involved.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Figuring out their budget is my first question when a client calls me. Is
Yes,
like where do they stand? Do they have backing?
Exactly.
Or are they on really limited funds?
Foot in the bill themselves.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So that's when I usually spread out a project amongst various weeks. Okay.
Yes.
So this week they can only afford 3 hours. Next week maybe another 3 hours, or maybe they can get a little more than 4. So then don't try to pressure it into doing an 8-hour session.
Absolutely.
Try to work within whatever their parameters are.
Absolutely. And I think that's good for them, because a lot of times a client may not know exactly what they would need.
That's
and
right.
create a process in the studio, you know.
right.
So this is a good way to kind of bring more light to what's most feasible for getting to the goal.
And it takes the pressure off too, knowing that you don't have to get it done in one session,
Absolutely.
2 sessions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yes.
So good. That's good. So the second question that comes up, and this has happened to me. So first, I should say every one of these questions have come up because these have happened to me in the last 40 years of working with clients. So these are not made up out of the ether. Every one of these issues are. So this issue came up for me. The singer wanted to perform while holding an expensive condenser mic in their hand. And we know that a condenser mics, when you hold them in your hand, they get hand holding noise, or you get rumble and things like that. So have you ever run across that situation?
I have not. I have not, fortunately.
Yeah, okay.
But, you know, I was thinking, and if something was to come up that way, you know, because artists like to have that security blanket, you know, whether it's lighting a candle or burning some incense or whatever it is to make them feel comfortable to record. And at the end, we want a great performance.
Yeah.
That's what we want to capture.
Yeah.
So if it means them having to hold a condenser mic that I don't typically will allow them to happen, I would probably come up with an alternative, or maybe just pulling out a dynamic mic, and just say, hey, I'm gonna do a double track, and I'm gonna get 2 takes, get out of it, or get 1 take with 2 different mics, 2 different signals.
That's a great idea.
You know, and just see how it goes that way.
Right. Well, so this issue came up with me. Well, first off, we're talking about, go back to the screen here, and you'll see a picture of Katie Lang on, if we go back to the laptop, and there she is holding a 414. She's holding an AKG 414, which is very much a condenser mic.
Yes, it is.
And it will get rumble noise, but because Katie Lang is such an amazing performer, she will know to get rid of the the handling of the noise, right? But besides Katie Lang, the question that came up for me is, I was working with a singer in Brooklyn, and he's an amazing singer. He's from Israel, and he had his own U87. He brought his own U87 to the session because that was his instrument. And he knew his voice, and he knew his 87. And so he said, okay, I have to hold this because I need to do it like I'm live. So what we did was we wrapped foam around the U87. We, put a nice thick piece of foam and taped it up with gaffer tape. And he was able to work that mic it was like he was playing an instrument. And he knew every single word that he was doing. He was going to sing a loud note. He knew exactly where to put that mic 5 inches away, and then he was going to sing a soft word, and he was moving it around constantly. And so that's the difference between working with a singer that knows their voice, knows their voice enough to know that a U87 is the only mic he wants to sing into.
Absolutely, yes.
And so, and it was a joy to record. And you'll notice, students, as you work with more and more singers that know their voices, or even instrumentalists that know their instruments, that your job becomes easy. All you have to do is sit back and make sure you don't mess up the levels. Just capture good performances.
Absolutely.
As soon as you have an artist of any type that is not, doesn't know their voice or doesn't know their instrument, then you're fighting a battle.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
So let's move on because all right. So here we have another question, and this comes up a lot for me. An artist brings a crew of people who will not be quiet while you're trying to hear crucial details during the session. So have you had this come up with you, Derrick?
Absolutely, especially on many pro sessions. You have the manager, you may have the A&R, you may have the assistant, you may have a whole gang full of people that will come into the session to make the artist have the true experience. And there have been times where I've been in those circumstances where I had to rely on just capturing multiple takes and just comp later.
Yeah.
You know, I could barely hear what was going on in the session, but you know, the artist is very skilled at what they do. You capture many takes. You definitely don't want to disrupt the vibe in the studio. That is so important. The vibe in the studio is really where the magic happens. Everyone is comfortable. I like to think that when you're in the studio, you know, the part of the reason why you're there in that studio is because you're a really good hang. You like people love to be around you.
That's right.
They're comfortable with you. They're comfortable with your workflow. So certainly that is very common for someone to bring in their entire crew. But there are things that you can do. You can maybe, you know, as you get in some of the first tracks and the whole crew is there, maybe you have them just go out for, you know, some errands, or maybe just have the, you know, you pass the message over to the manager quietly and ask if they could do the dirty work for you.
That's right. Yeah.
You
No,
know?
that's true. That's, you know, and as we know, a studio is a political, you know, experience.
Absolutely.
You have to say, you have to do everything where it doesn't offend anybody.
It's the psychology of it all.
Yeah, the psychology. You can't offend, and you can't demand. You know, demanding will, you know, hey, get the heck out of my session.
That's
get
not
out
gonna.
of here.
That's not
It's
gonna
not
work.
going to go. It's not going to create a good atmosphere. So, and especially for our students, I think a lot of students and you know, a lot of other studios also operate in a one-room place where you're going to have the vocalist in the same room as some of the other gear.
Absolutely.
And that's different than you having a vocalist, you know, behind the glass, and you can have all the noise going on in the control room all you want.
Yes.
But when you got a one-room place,
that's
you know,
problems.
so I agree. Sending people out for food or tasks, or if they get an important phone call, just I would make it clear before the session even starts. Hey, you know, take any phone call that comes in, please take it outside.
Absolutely.
You know, because that's the last thing you need is an interruption of
Absolutely.
you know, of that kind of ilk. You know, when they're doing business or or even their personal things, and you have that feeling come into the session, it can throw off the whole, as you said, the vibe is thrown off. So you know, that's why I put the icons of a cell phone. If you go back to the screen here, I put a radio up there, I put a cell phone, or people even playing on their game systems or whatever.
Whatever's going to keep them busy.
All that's distraction, and you know, it doesn't help. So I usually say if you're not adding something to the session, you know, you're distracting.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
Absolutely.
So the next question, this is a really tough one. The musician is attempting to play or sing a part that for an hour that's beyond their skill level, or even better, make it simpler, is that a singer's trying to reach some notes that they can't quite reach.
Wow.
Yeah. So have you come across that?
I have, and again, part of and it's what we teach here. You know, we teach, you know, not only the technical side of things, but we teach about solving problems. You know, and that's part of what we do as engineers in the hot seat, and when we're controlling the session, is to guide people through that creative process. You know, we kind of blur lines of producer, engineer, you know, that we walk this line every day in our workflow. But certainly that has happened, and I encourage, you know, the artist to possibly move on, or because they can burn out, you know, and they certainly burn out, and once they burn out, the performance is
hard to get it back.
It's hard to get it back, you know. And it is really hard to get that back. So you encourage them, you know, move on. Maybe even, you know, if it's within the budget, maybe you can, you know, encourage them to hire session musicians that can come in, that can play the part much quicker. And,
That's right. And it can even add a special vibe there.
Absolutely. If they're open to it, you know. So it's one of the things that you can certainly address and bring up.
Well, for me, I would never let an hour go by.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I know it's hard because they're paying me by the hour, they're paying the studio by the hour. So, you know, it's easy to sit back and go, oh, yeah, I'm just collecting money while they're, you know, fooling around on an instrument or can't get the voice. But that's painful, you know.
It is.
So I would stop it after 15 minutes. And if let's just take a singer, for instance. If they're not reaching the notes, I would sometimes, there's a psychological trick I notice I can do is I can leave all the drums alone, but just change, if all the things are MIDI, I can literally just pull the key down and maybe even pull it down a half step or maybe even a whole step. And psychologically, their brain is now, okay, now I can hit these notes really easily. And then you can either bring the key back up and then do a pitch change on the vocal, or after they get that in that key, then you just switch it back to the other key, and they might find that they found a new way to sing it.
Exactly.
They found a different way to approach it.
Absolutely.
But doing the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity.
It
You're
is.
expecting a different result. It's
Exactly
doing the same
what the
thing
same
over and
thing.
over again.
Yes,
So
yeah.
that's, I forget who said that. A famous person said that, but that's so
really
true.
good, yes.
You're expecting a different result by doing the same
Yeah.
thing over and over again. It just doesn't work. So yeah, you do anything to switch up the brain, switch up their mind, and if it's a musician not getting it, I hate to do it. Oh, well, can I try that part? I don't
Yes.
want to do that.
Exactly.
I don't, because that's psychologically going to mess with the brain.
Unless,
unless they
sorry.
hand you the instrument.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
say, hey, Paul, why don't you try this?
Exactly. Yep.
Then it's something different. But I wouldn't volunteer that.
Yes, absolutely. And eventually, sometimes we get to that comfort with the client, and the clients that we both had, we work with for several years, that they know our abilities beyond just the engineering, so they will pass it off.
Exactly.
For us to do that
somebody
test,
else might step in and say, hey,
Exactly.
why don't you try this? And somebody. So good. That's a good solution there. All right. So this is an interesting one. The song you're recording is beyond what you deem as, quote, good music. What everybody's version of good music is different.
Yes.
So
yes.
how do we handle that as professionals?
Yes, this is where we just remain open-minded. We just take each project and each task one at a time. Everything that we record may not be something that we endorse.
That's right. That's right.
And
what happens when they turn to you and say, "What do you think of this song?"
You give honest feedback, but you certainly positive reinforcement.
Right.
You
never
never want to tear anyone down. And music it's all art. It's their expression, it's how they feel. They're paying us to capture that.
That's right.
This moment. So you certainly you kind of leave your own feelings and your behind. And
what if they ask you that question, I think what they're looking for is a way to judge their, where does their song fit in the whole realm of music,
commercial viability.
Exactly.
Yes. So and in that case, and it's like what we do in our classes. I like to ask my students to pull up a reference song. And that reference song is not to infringe on the copyright of that person's work, but this is just as a guide to say, I like my low end to hit here, or I like the drums or the snare to be here, or the vocal levels to be at this point. This gives us a good guide. So if they have something that can kind of help guide you into this is the direction, because I like to think I'm an old head too, so I don't know the young music like that. So a lot of times what I may not think is good music could just be the happening thing. So just keep an open mind and give honest feedback, because people can quickly discern whether you're just kind of just
and the way I give honest feedback is I might just say, hey, I really see this working for this audience, but I'm not that intended audience.
Exactly.
But I could really see it working for somebody.
And you point out the good of it. You point out the good of the work. You start with that, and then if they ask for what things could be done to get it better, and then you chip in where where it's required.
All right. So this is a really interesting one that came up for me once, and I have a really interesting story that came up. But I'll just ask it in this really simple question. So the singer wants to be paid as a session musician for singing on one of your completed instrumental tracks. Has that ever happened to you? And when it wasn't set up, you didn't hire them as a session singer to begin with. They came in to sing on a completed instrumental, and then after they went home, they said, wait a minute, I sang on your song, I demand to be paid as a session singer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so this has not happened to me, but I do work in a lot of collaborative efforts, most with various songwriters, musicians. So again, when you're starting to work and collaborate in these settings, in these creative environments, this is where you hear about split sheets and publishing and all of these things that no one really likes to talk about it until the song comes out and it's a success and everyone is looking for their claim.
Sure, of course.
But certainly in those situations, you keep the communication open, and you see what people want to have. If it could be an ongoing collaborative effort with the person, then it's beneficial in the long run versus just billing them hourly or paying them as just as a sessions.
Right. Well, the story I have was not a collaborative thing.
Okay.
The story came in, and the singer needed a demo for their voice.
All right.
And they came in with one half of a song, one half of a chorus written. They had nothing written, and I was saying, okay, you only have 2 hours. They wanted a demo in 2 hours, and they only had half of a chorus written. I said, okay, then we're not going to be able to do a 3-minute song unless we spend at least 4 hours doing it. You have 2 hours. So I said, okay, and you don't have a full song, and you weren't giving me any ideas. So I said, okay, I have this lyric and I have this track.
Okay.
Okay, here I'm going to play this for you, and here's the melody, and I sang on the melody, and they sang on it, and they took it home, and one of their friends said to them, who worked for Disney, and said, like, you know, you just sang on that person's song, and they didn't pay you for it. And I was like, oh, and they called me back and said, you owe me as a session singer. And I said, I didn't want a session singer.
Yeah.
I was trying to help you out.
Got it.
And it came in a really uncomfortable thing. So it was just, I think what you said was the most important of that communication and laying it out up front.
Yes.
What is involved
Make it
here.
clear.
Make it clear. I don't need a collaboration on this song. The song is done, and you don't even necessarily want a song. I'm just trying to help you out to get something to sing on. It wasn't a cover song. They didn't want to do a cover song.
And anything could be negotiated. At that point.
So we negotiated. We found a happy medium.
Awesome.
But it was
yes,
it was a very funny. It turned into a funny story that I get to tell now. So.
That's awesome.
So all right, the next one is. Okay, so this comes up a lot, especially in our hotbed of political climate we go in these days. People are on all sides of of movements and political things. So if they're in the middle, you've known this person a little bit, maybe only a few hours, maybe a couple of sessions, and they want to know your feelings on something they're really hot issue. Where do you cross the line with that?
The studio is no place for the political game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just.
Well, what happens if their lyrics aren't political?
Yeah, it's. I know it's a really touch, and students, you all will learn over time, and this is something that Paul and I have been, we've been working for so many years. I mean, we certainly so many different people. We didn't come in knowing this,
right? Right. Exactly.
You just come in and you just fill out the situation and fill out people. But I certainly try to stay away from those things that's going just that's not pertinent to the session.
Exactly.
That's, side conversation. Those things will happen, and we're in the same space for several hours. But we try to stay on tap.
Think about it. Think about what an artist is when they come in to deliver a performance. They're putting their emotions on the line, right? They're bringing their emotions out, and that's why lots of times you want to clear the studio if they're doing a really personal lyric.
Exactly.
Right? And so, in that respect, sometimes they could be doing a lyric that means so much to them, and it might be maybe not even a political movement. Maybe it could be a cultural movement.
Absolutely.
Something.
Absolutely.
And that they, so they want to know that you're on the same page as them. So that's where I would give them reinforcement. It's like, I really feel where you're coming from. Great. Or if they're coming from someplace I don't agree with, let's say they want to promote gun violence or want to promote gun ownership, and I would just say, I don't really agree with you on this, but I'll work with you to get the best thing as possible.
Exactly. And again, as a professional, we know how to just it's not necessarily our view, but it's where we just keep the environment comfortable for all parties. That's in the creative process.
That's right. That's right. Good. All right. So move on. I was going to go into a story about working with Wu-Tang, but I think I'll just leave that.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, speaking of gun violence, they're all about bringing guns to the session. So, the client wants to sit in on the engineer's chair and mix the project the way they hear it. So they hire us as an engineer. So have you ever had that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it happens. They have a vision.
That's right.
They have a vision of how they want it to sound, and it is our job to make that vision clear and just make it tangible.
Yeah.
And that has happened. I personally will keep a backup of my session.
That's right. Save as.
Save as, Save as and let them go off, because sometimes in that situation we can learn something about what it is that they may not know how to say what it is that they want, but sometimes just sitting there, that's given if they know the software or the console that we're working on. But there's a lot of placebo that happens in the studio.
Exactly. And then I'll just add to that, you pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. So I'll add to that, and if they come up with something, I'll go back to my session and literally import the tracks. I might import the track in on top of my existing session and to hear their plugins, or do a save as the plugins, or do a save of the channel strip plugins and stuff, and bring that into the into the current session. So
and that's another thing. It's very common, where the producer will have a part in the mixing. You see that a lot.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're getting into the nitty gritty of time and how much they pay for time. So A client requests a 25% reduction off your normal rate for a 10-hour session, and your normal rate, let's say, would be a 3 or 4 hour session, a normal session length. And they want to do a 10-hour session. Do you do 10-hour sessions ever?
I have done 10-hour sessions,
Yeah.
generally 8-hour blocks.
Right.
But, again, filling out the budget, we have to recoup the money. We know where record sales are. We
Right.
know where streaming rates are.
Sure,
So, I mean, it's a very tough time.
Right,
But we
right,
do
right.
have, the Music Modernization Act and things that's just helping us start to get, get the revenue
So
generating
would you
again.
do
But
this?
so
Would you take a 25% reduction?
It depends. Most of the projects that I work on now are projects that I enjoy.
Right.
It's projects that I really believe in the artist.
Yes.
I like the direction that the artist is going.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, it becomes a thing of the longevity of the experience of working with this client or
that's
these
right.
clients rather than just trying to nickel and dime
Yeah, of
for,
course, of course,
what my being so,
Yeah.
solid on what my rate is.
That's
I
right.
certainly don't want to put myself in a hole or anything
of
shorter,
course, of course,
but
yeah.
definitely I it's give and take.
Right.
It's give and take.
And that brings me to this. I think the bottom line is everything is negotiable.
Yes,
And
yes,
that's no matter
yes.
what business dealing you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Everything is negotiable. So if they demanding 25%, say, okay, I'll give you 20% for a 10-hour session. But the way I look at it is a 4-hour session, I don't take breaks. I literally
just go
am
right
working
through.
for 4 hours. We're moving on from here to here to here to here. In a 10-hour session, you could do an hour lunch. You could do an
Yes.
hour lunch, a half-hour lunch, and an hour dinner.
Absolutely.
You could take breaks. You could just feel it's a whole different feeling in the session where there's much more relaxed
full
vibe
day.
going on. If you got to spend 15 minutes getting a mic on something and getting the perfect thing,
Yes.
whereas if you got 4 hours, if I don't have that mic sound in 5 minutes,
Yes.
I'm figuring out what's going on, and I'm going to have it in 6 minutes.
Yes,
there's
absolutely.
no, But if
Absolutely.
you got a 10-hour session, it's much more relaxed.
Yes.
And you are, so
of-
I don't mind taking a 20% reduction if I know I'm going to have a really chill, and because for me, this 4 hours, I've got to be on every second.
Yes.
There's no, me leewaying
Absolutely.
in any way.
Yes.
I've got to be on. I know that they're paying their hard-earned money. And I'm not cheap, so they're
exactly.
paying
Yes,
they're paying
absolutely.
their hard-earned money to get this
Absolutely.
done, and I'm there to get it done. So a 10-hour session is like, okay, now we can relax, we
Yes,
can have a little
yes.
lunch, and we can we can talk.
Yeah, exactly.
We could talk about whatever's going on in their life,
Yeah, and
it's a
again,
different vibe,
the 10-hour session, it's a window of time.
That's
It's a
right.
window of time. It's like it's blocking out the facility for this amount of time so everyone can work
Exactly.
easily without the stress.
Exactly. Good,
So-
good, great. All right, so similar to the other political movement question, the singer sings lyrics that you find offensive or denigrating and asks for your opinion.
Ooh.
Not just that they're singing it, but what do you think of that? Have I crossed? They're going to say to you, have I crossed a line here? What am I going to do?
Again, with my workflow and my experience, having that communication up front and
Right.
just consulting with, before I begin any of these productions, I'm sitting with the artist for maybe 30 minutes
Sure.
or an hour having a lunch and just
Sure.
figuring out what their visions are.
Yeah,
so when they're coming in the studio, I know,
Right.
tell me what the song
what's
is
their
about.
goals? What do they need? Yeah, what
I'm
they-
getting my intel,
That's right. That's right.
I'm figuring out what it is that I'm going to be recording, and at that time, I could see if I'm the best fit for it,
That's
for the project,
That's
or I could just pass it off to someone else.
Right.
Again, I try to not put myself in those, situations where now we're in the recording environment, the clock is running,
Right.
and now there's this elephant
Right.
in the room.
Exactly. exactly. That's good advice right there.
So-
for me, I find there's a delicate balance between political correctness and then making sure the client can express themselves.
Exactly.
So as long as they're doing it, I've heard every word in the book. I work with every type of client you can imagine. But so they're not going to offend me with any words.
Exactly.
But if they're talking about something, they're again denigrating women or denigrating
Absolutely.
a
Absolutely.
class of people. That's when I kind of draw the line.
Yes,
Say, wait
absolutely,
a minute.
I
No,
agree.
I think we've crossed the line. Here.
Yes, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I would actually bring it up and say, I don't, especially if they ask my opinion, I'd say, you know what, maybe you should temper this back. I think you might be going on the wrong side of
Yeah.
being PC right now.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is a really interesting question. The project you're currently working on is not meeting the client's expectations, and they refuse to pay for the studio time used.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I've experienced this before, and it wasn't per se. It's a very unique situation, and I don't want to. I'm not going to mention the client's name, but there has been situations where in a production environment, you have various production teams, and I was one of the producers, and I was left with the masters. I had the masters, and the artist never received their masters from other producer, so I was left as the cleanup guy.
Right.
To kind of fix what someone else has done, and I'm just holding on to these masters. So I had to renegotiate a whole nother deal just to be able to finish out the work. But again, this is, I keep saying this word communication. I don't know it's because we live in an online environment and communication is key, but it's certainly in that regard, each step of the way you kind of get a sense of if the client is happy.
Right.
This is why after each session, whether it's a 4-hour block, 2-hour block, 8-hour block, we're just giving them rough mixes of their work.
Right.
So they can live with it, listen to it in their cars, and then take it with them, come back to the studio and say, okay, it's not quite where I wanted to go, but let's see if we can change this. And we're flexible. As an experienced producer and engineer, we learn to be flexible and make those changes.
My rule is I don't let anybody walk with I don't send them a file or let them walk without anything unless it's paid for, because these days it's too easy to pull out a credit card and I can swipe it, swipe a credit card. So, the idea that you ran over and I don't have the amount of cash on me. Well, find a credit card.
Yes, absolutely.
So I generally don't release anything until it's paid for.
And I guess the worst that could come from that is they just run with the MP3 and get that master, but hopefully not.
No,
but
I don't even release a master. I don't even release an MP3.
Okay.
I don't release anything.
Okay.
No, I've been burned too many times. In that people will say, "Hey, I want to pay you next week." I say no, or they write me a bad check.
Absolutely.
They don't do checks these days. It seems like we're in a checkless society, but most of the time it's cash or swiping a credit card.
Yes.
So I usually, if you can't, if we ran over, then went overtime than what you brought with you, then let's, find a credit card somewhere.
Find a credit card,
We'll make it work,
Absolutely.
And billing labels I try to get some money up front.
Oh, absolutely. When we're talking labels, that's a whole nother beast.
Exactly. So, so this is one I really think it's worthwhile spending time on. And that is the client asks you for free studio time to finish up a song that you're working on for them in exchange for a share of the publishing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Again, everything is negotiable.
Everything is negotiable.
It's if it behooves you, to finish out the work because you believe in the project.
Right.
And
that's the bottom line.
Again,
you believe it has
you believe in the project. This is going to go somewhere, and it's just a great.
Is it commercially viable?
Exactly. At that point, you could make that decision, and this is something students you become more comfortable with this over time. You have to kind of feel your way out and just see what that client is to you and how long the longevity of the relationship you want.
That's right.
But certainly, again, a piece of the publishing on something is you always hear 100% of everything or 10% of something. That percentage certainly will.
It can.
It could just propel things forward for you.
Right.
Just having that credit.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about publishing, as compared to asking them to pay you, upon sale to a third party, the beautiful thing about publishing is they don't have to be involved with you collecting.
Yes.
Because then it goes right through your pro.
Yes.
So that's the good thing. So you have to, I speak for myself. If I believe in the project so much that I think it has some kind of publishing interest, or it could get placed in a visual medium somewhere.
Absolutely.
Then I'll do that.
I think in addition to that, Paul, one of the good things about that, once you have publishing or have some interest in that song, you have the right to push that project forward. So you could pass it off to one of your peers, that could a music supervisor or someone to place it in the film or TV, whereas they may not have that outlet. But now that you have an interest in it publishing wise, it gives you that that opportunity.
Cool. Okay. So we've got 2 more questions. We'll see if time for them. The client asks you to add 20 dBs. That's a lot. 20 dBs of boost at 60 hertz to a bass instrument. And I asked this really in a silly way, and I actually have an answer of something I've done similar to this, but I asked it in a way just to be shocking. So, and it is shocking.
It is 20 dB.
Like 20 dB.
Yes.
What are you doing there? Yeah.
It might be better off just finding an 808 sample,
Exactly.
finding what is missing in the arrangement to fill up that space. And again, this is where the trust factor comes in when you're working with clients. They're coming to you because you are the expert in the room.
Right.
So you let them have their field day with, maybe not with a 20 dB in that case. If they're sitting behind a console, you don't want to blow your speakers or your gear, anything like that, or overload the system. But however, that's a legitimate scenario. It happens.
I worked with a hip hop producer in New York who did exactly that. He walked over and cranked up plus 20, and it took me a while to get over it, and then I figured out a way to compromise and make it work. But I actually have a better story. I worked with a reggae bass player.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they like the bottom end on their bass.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And they're gonna literally roll off. You got the bass and treble on, or you have the treble roll off on them. They're gonna literally roll that all the way back.
Exactly.
And so if you find, I worked with this guy, and he did want that much bass on his reggae bass part, but he played into that 60 hertz. He knew his bass, and we were going into just the right analog compressor.
Yes.
That he knew he knew that compressor, he knew his bass, and he knew his fingers. Now, if you got an amateur bass player, they couldn't do it.
Exactly.
And if you don't have a great compressor, an analog compressor, and you don't have a great bass and a guy that knows every note. This guy happened to know his bass. He knew his notes. He knew what notes would jump out at that boost. But he did it, and we were able to pull it off. So I asked it in a funny way, because I knew I had this funny story. If you had the right player, the right instrument, and the right compressor.
Yes.
And you can really you can be amazed at and because he performed into it. Now it wasn't post production. You would be playing into the compressor with that boost, before it. And so anyway,
and it worked for the genre.
Exactly. I guess the lesson is never say never to anything.
Exactly.
Have an open mind.
Have an open mind.
Even though you would read that sentence, you would say never.
Exactly.
The answer would be never.
What's going to happen to my midfields and my near-field speakers?
Exactly. Find an option, but you can find anything more. So this is the final one. I think it's just kind of a funny one. See if we can quickly add it here while we still have a minute here. Client trips over some kind of portable electronic device and breaks the connector, but it's not. So I didn't ask it in a way that it's $1,000 repair or $500 repair. It's just niggly enough to be like, where do I go? It's $100 repair.
Yes.
Do I ruin a relationship?
Exactly.
Or do I charge it to him for $100? Or where do we go with this?
Well, in any business, there's profit and loss.
That's right.
This is why for many years I've had music insurance on my gear.
Yeah.
I do a lot of live performance, so I may have a $4,000 workstation in my car. Maybe accidentally the door, something may happen. Things happen. It gets rained out.
That's right.
So having a policy, it's like, as you put it, and I agree with that. To ruin a relationship over $100 repair. And typically, in a setting, in a studio like that, the client will, if they happen to pour something over or break something, they, in my experience, they own it.
Yeah.
They realize they tripped over and they broke it. What can I do to do it?
And
once they find out it's a $3,000 piece of gear, if I had to put this on hold. But again, that's nothing that a deductible that's fair that can cover as a business.
Exactly.
So
I don't have anything to add to that. That's fantastic. That's great answers. Do we have any questions at all?
Yeah, guys, it looks like we have 2 questions from our audience here. We have Jason Doyle who asks, do you have any information on how to book work, specifically with scoring, maybe for TV or for film?
That's not my lane.
Sure. Well, the best thing to do is you need the experience to, it's the catch-22. You need to have a project done in order to get more work. So how do you get a project done? And that is a visual medium. And there's 2 ways to do it. And this was recommended to me many, many years ago. And you take a scene from a film that's very heavy in scoring, one of your favorite films, and then you remove the music, and you do your own music underneath it. We actually teach that method here in post-production here. You remove the existing music and you do your own music, and now you have, as part of your reel, is what they call it, right? You have now something that looks professional, and then you've added your own music. So that's something you can showcase, right? So that's one way to do it. The other way is to go to a student film thing. And there again, we have that on campus here. You go to any college that has a film program, you go to their, you put up a notice either on their bulletin board or somewhere on their website that, hey, I'm a composer, I'm willing to do for free on any student film, and it would more than likely be a 10 or 20 or 30-minute film, so it wouldn't require you a massive number of work. That way you have a reel. So then once you have a reel of your compositional skills on it, then you can take that reel and you can utilize it and post that online. And now, of course, with YouTube, as long as you don't get it taken down by the YouTube police,
yes.
As long as it's not copywritten material, you have someplace to point if any prospective clients. And the best thing you can do to get prospective clients, one more thing, is to go to imdb.com and join imdb.com. That's where they post all the new films, all the new projects that are coming up. So.
And we have one more question from Jeffrey C. He'd like to know, I suppose, what is a modern studio like? He likes to work with DAWs, with vintage equipment. Is this a good way to go?
Go for it.
Absolutely. My modern studio is in my backpack. With an assortment of emulator plugins that emulate the hardware and the analog gear that we like. Portability, mobility is where it is. Many of our students will have. I've been seeing that come across. You probably have too. The eyeball?
Keymatica eyeball. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So more companies are making product because they know we're on the go. We're taking a flight somewhere else, or we're in the subway, we're waiting for a train, waiting for a bus, or whatever it may be. We have to have the ability to continue to create. So a modern studio today will be practically what what you all have in your lunchbox.
That's right.
That is the way, and it has been a challenge in a sense for some of the major studios because, unless it is specifically just getting there to record some of the acoustic things that we need, like drums and piano, and we're needing to record in that space.
That's right.
Most of what we can do is within our DAWs today with sample libraries.
The only thing I would add to that, and I agree completely, everything you said, portability is the key, and especially working on airplanes or working on everything. I even bought a tiny little keyboard that goes with my MacBook Pro to tiny little one that I can do on an airplane and not look conspicuous.
Absolutely, yes.
And so it's always fun. But to add to that, I think knowing that you can bring your laptop into a larger space,
absolutely,
import it into a larger facility, I think is the key. The other key to realize these days is that collaboration online it's been that way growing for the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
But now it's really, I have clients that I have one client that I have not seen in 10 years.
Yes.
Well, I'm take that back. I have 3 clients I haven't seen in 10 or 15 years. And they literally send me files.
Yes.
And I do my parts and I send them files back. And because I'm playing instruments that they don't have, or that they don't have the skill to play, and I do so many different instruments, but they mainly hire me to do keyboards and piano and things like that. So, the modern studio is filling a role that is needed. I think that's pretty much it. You want to figure out what niche is needed and how can you fill that niche, and whether that means, for me, clients come into me they have the laptop and they've been working on their project and now they upload it to me and now I take it to the next level.
Process, yes.
Yeah, and or they said, and then we start a thing where they can now send me files, and so it's being able to adapt and being able to understand where the business front is going, and being able to fill that niche.
Yes, absolutely.
And so to conclude, I think that's what we've learned from all these 14 different questions, is that you've got to find your niche in this industry. You've got to find what you do that's unique from other people.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, in closing, we hope you enjoyed hearing about what we had to say, and remember, this is a monthly event. So if you miss this live event, feel free to come back next month. It's always the Monday of second Monday of the week, I do believe that. It's second Monday of the month, I think that's the question. I think that's the answer.
The
third Monday. In fact, it is the third Monday
Monday
of each month. It's week 3. That's what today is. Yes, thank you. And yeah, and it's usually at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So keep an eye on Full Sail 1 for information about that, and keep an eye on your messages as they come through, because we'll always post it a week in advance. So thank you for showing up if you showed up, and thank you for listening if you're watching this on an archive. From Derrick and myself, Paul Harlyn, I look forward to seeing you in class if I haven't already had you in class. And
absolutely, absolutely.
All right.
Yes. To the next time.
Yes.